Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, our next performance is a double act. We have Garrad, who is the Employee Research and Engagement with Mercer Sirota, and we also have our own senior consultant, Bruce Hancock. So Lewis was actually the person that introduced us to minor hotel groups. So a lot of what you've just seen was down to that introduction, so thank you for that. Lewis is a chartered occupational psychologist. He is based in Singapore, and he is an expert in employee feedback and engagement. Bruce has been based in Thailand for approximately 16 years now, working in this region, Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And together, through a strategic partnership between Mercer Sirota, Hogan and Mentis, they have been working with a large telecom organization in the Middle East, and I'm very happy to hand over to them now to introduce you to that.
Thank you very much. Well, it's wonderful. I think we'll try and actually keep this fairly punchy so that we can give you a little bit of time back today. Put your hands up. How many of you have engagement programs, like an employee engagement survey in your company? Yes. How many of you have heard of this partnership between Mercer and Hogan, the engaging leader? Just one of you, great. So you're going to learn something. So very quickly, so thank you, Andrew, for your kind introduction. I'm sitting down. The reason I'm sitting down is because I have tremendously bad jet lag. I was in Africa last week, and I haven't recovered. And I was so excited to see Tomas last night. I had 4 singers, and I'm a little slow today. So apologies if I sit here, but as I talk through this, I might get a bit more excited. So let's see if I move around. Yes, I am a psychologist by training. My passion is learning about people at work. I love it when I find out what makes them tick, what gets them excited, and a big part of that is leadership. Experiencing powerful, meaningful leadership, leaders who are the route through which organizations can transform their people into high-performing, talented employees. So what I want to share with you today is some of the way that Bruce and I work together to help this organization with a real example. This isn't theory. I'm going to give you some real data that showed you the way that we did this. Bruce, do you want to say something, just to introduce yourself?
Well, maybe I'll save that for a little bit. But it's been exciting. It's been an exciting venture, the project working with yourself.
Can any of you tell where Bruce is from? Have any of you seen Thor Ragnarok? He's the big blue. Go see it. You'll notice he sounds like Bruce. It's very good. Okay, so what we did in this organization is we combined assessment data and engagement survey data to give this executive leadership team an opportunity to think differently about their company. This is a company that's been growing very fast. It's a telco. It's actually in the Middle East. And what we wanted to help them do is step back from their day-to-day hustle and bustle and think about the impact that they were having on their organization and how that was being reflected in the engagement of their people. This is something they hadn't really done before. I've been working with this company for 5 or 6 years. I've been talking to them for years about their challenges around engagement. And this was the first time that I was able to collaborate with Bruce, with Mentis, with Hogan, to really bring powerful new insights into how leaders impact their teams. So let's just start with a quick introduction to engagement. What is it? Where did it come from? I think we all assume that this is an important concept. Actually, we've been studying engagement for more than 25 years. It was coined by a business professor in Boston University, William Kahn. And you'll see from the slide here, I mean, what he identified was the difference and the choice that people make at work when they come into work between just doing the bare minimum to get by or really leaning in and investing their full selves in work. And the difference between those two states is what he called employee engagement. And his point was that this is really different to the operating model that many leaders had in the early 90s when he came out with this idea, where basically they thought if you find an ambitious person and reward them in the right way, you get high levels of performance. What Kahn really identified was the idea that the work environment that you provide them, the quality of leadership and the way they experience work has a dramatic impact on how they turn up and how well they do. So that's best articulated through this very simple equation. And I use this a lot with business leaders because it really simplifies the point, right? And it also shows you why you can have tremendously talented people who might be disengaged who still perform well. Actually, this is something I stole from Tomas. You're going to notice I steal a lot of stuff from Tomas. Sorry, buddy. That's just what I decided to do. But actually, so Tomas talks about the idea that performance is talent minus effort. I just changed effort into employee engagement. And my point here is that if you have highly talented employees, you can provide them with an engaging work environment. We tend to find those people come to work and deliver better results. So how do we get more highly engaged employees? Well, just the model we use based on our review of the research looks at 3 key things. The first is the way that they experience leadership and management in their organization, the relationship they have with their boss, the confidence they have in the top management of the business. The second is what we call organization factors. That's a catch-all for everything else that they experience. The learning and development programs, the kind of office space they work in, their relationship with their colleagues. And last is them themselves. If you're interested in the science, again, Tomas has a very interesting paper on the engageability of individual employees. People with high EQ are easier to engage at work, right? So actually, this is something that we underestimate a lot. And I think, around 30% of the variance in engagement is due to who I am and the way and my own personality. That's something that we don't talk about a lot. Actually, Mercer's doing a lot of work in this space. We call them personas, trying to help individuals understand who they are and how they can influence their own engagement at work. It's the democratization of engagement, right? And you can't, if these 3 things are true, you can't just leave this to leadership and management. You have to help individual employees also help themselves. And that's also something we're paying a lot of attention to in recent work. So what we find is that people come to work with 3 needs. I won't cover the top in detail, but the point is that many people come to work to feel connected to others, feel a sense of belonging, we call that camaraderie, to feel that they can achieve something meaningful and be recognized and rewarded for those achievements, and to be treated with a fundamental sense of fairness and respect as an adult human being at work, feeling a sense of status in the workplace, and to feel appreciated for their contribution. And actually, it's this simple. So very, very often, we overcomplicate the idea of engagement into all sorts of wonderful, incredibly complicated programs, when really, if we understand what people want from work, what their basic human needs are, and translate that into compelling leadership and management practices, into compelling HR programs, we'll tend to have more highly engaged employees. We evolved to have these needs. Yeah? And they're true for everybody. If you're interested in this, then David Sirota, who founded the company that then we sold to Mercer, but has a wonderful book called The Enthusiastic Employee, where he lays out the 3 key things that people want from work: achievement, camaraderie, and equity, and talks about how you can help people achieve those things in the workplace. So the reason why we want to talk about leadership today is because leadership translates directly into the work environment that people experience, and that then influences engagement, which then influences business performance. And this is the Hogan model, the leadership value chain. And one of the things that we've been doing with Hogan is trying to explore the direct connection between who their leader is and how they impact their team through these different routes and channels. And we worked on a project together for about 18 months to explore the direct relationships between team effectiveness, how people feel about working with a leader, and who that leader is. And earlier on, Tomas was talking a lot about the importance of building self-awareness. This tool is really designed to help leaders better understand the impact that they have on others. And so I won't belabor this, but one of the reasons this is such an important concept is, and why engagement is something we think is important for leadership as well, is because of the way that we judge and understand leaders. So very often we judge and understand leaders by their own individual impact, the impact they're having on their organization, perhaps how charismatic they are. The Engaging Leader Project is helping organizations change the way they think about team effectiveness and leadership and the relationship between those two things to help you understand that leaders don't just show up and are entertaining and brilliant. The thing that they do most, the thing that's most important, is that they use a process to transform a group of individuals, maybe talented individuals, into a high-performing team. So the way they do that, and this is now a Mercer-Sirota model, is through 4 channels. So you'll see here we have strategy. This is the choices leaders make about their team. The leaders themselves, managers, employees. And actually, we use this model to understand what effective teams do. So leaders architect a clear strategy, which is represented in the goals and the vision that they set for the team, whether or not people feel brought in and brought along by those things. And the employees then need to be enabled to deliver on that strategy. If you're going to ask people to do something and you do not give them the tools and resources they need to succeed, you will irritate the daylights out of them, right? Don't expect people to be engaged if you ask them to do something and then you don't give them the tools and resources they need, and that includes time, to get that work done. They're going to quit, right? Third, we need organizations to build positive team environments for people. And this is really where we see meeting those core needs as an important component of team effectiveness. And last, we need leaders and managers to be working together to create open, agile, innovative cultures, adaptive, keeping up with the pace of change. And what we wanted to know is if these are the things that define team effectiveness, what personality traits drive those outcomes, right? So we want to know what drives those outcomes, so we use the HPI to do that, and then what gets in the way of people experiencing positive work and from the leadership perspective, and we use the HDS to do that. So now I'm going to share this case study with you, and this is a real organization. So the group of companies, it's a big organization. It's about 15,000 people, maybe actually a little more, 18,000 people globally, right? And they have about 12 different operating companies. So this is one particular operating company within that. And you'll see here, this is the average engagement result. So we have a number of questions in an engagement survey that I run for them. And we're looking here at percent favorable data, the percentage of positive responses. And you can see that overall the group has been actually improving over time. That's the effect I have on companies. But this particular one is having consistent challenges. It tanked over the first few years and had sort of managed to level itself out. They changed their chief executive, actually, which helped. But they were having tremendous difficulty. You can see that when we looked, they have a long survey. I'm trying to get them off a long survey, but they have a long survey. This is the number of questions. You can see half of the questions in their survey had declined, and the biggest concerns were in terms of how they communicated and their confidence in the level, in the topmost management of the business. So they brought us in to try and help them resolve these issues, specifically by working with the senior leadership team. So what we did is we gathered feedback from the direct reports. So there were 6 teams reporting to the senior executive team, 25 directors. The engaging leader tool has 54 questions that we asked these folks. And then we gave each of those 6 leaders a Hogan assessment, all 3 batteries. So we use HPI, HDS, and MVPI, and we combined that into one overall insight package. So what I'm going to show you now is the survey responses from these 25 directors who report in here, so you can see what behavioral strengths and challenges were raised. So here are the things that went really well. So you can see each question is what is upward feedback. This is what my boss does with me. And at the top here, it's like, well, they're accessible. They're kind of sensitive to my need for flexibility at work. Sure, encourages collaboration, recognizes me. Hey, these are really good behavioral outcomes, right? So looking at this, you'd think that, hey, these managers are doing an amazing job. How are these people not engaged at work? What is the problem if so many people who work for these leaders feel so positive about their behavior? So then we looked at the other side. So you can see much bigger red bars here and much smaller green ones. And what we found was that while these managers were collaborating, looking for ideas, trying to be open and positive, they weren't getting any work done. So they weren't helping their teams set plans, remove barriers to success. They were talking a lot, recognizing people, being nice, but they weren't pushing through delivery. They weren't, the teams reporting to them didn't feel that therefore they communicated very effectively. They weren't providing feedback on how progress was going. They weren't really identifying the future vision of the company and translating that for the people who work for them. So while here you can see so many positive behaviors, right, they meant nothing in the face of the fact that people didn't feel these leaders were really delivering on the promises that they'd made. So using the three Hogan inventories, I won't cover them in any detail, we actually pulled for the 6 leaders a Hogan team report. And the team report combines the personality profiles and gives you a roles inventory for the team as a whole, right? So what do you notice here? What really stands out for you? This is the actual profile of this senior leadership team. This one, right? They had loads of people, so they're from this, and this uses HPI data, right? So while they had some ambitious folks, they had some folks that were perhaps hard-headed and pragmatic. They had a bunch of people who were really curious and interested to have nice conversations around, what new ideas have we got? But they had nobody, not a single person on the team, who was focused on actually getting stuff done. When I showed this to a colleague of mine, he said they're missing an action. They've turned up, but they're not really getting anything done. And you can see now how it's incredible how the validity of these tools work, right? They had identified the fact. So what they were trying to do to fix their engagement problem was to, be open, to recognize people, to be nice to people. But what they really needed to do is to figure out how to make more powerful progress with their business, to actually have better process. And they had no idea this was the problem until we brought this data to them, both the feedback data, but also they didn't think they were the problem. They thought the next level down was the problem. Oh, they're just not getting any work done. And now they saw in very clear terms that actually they didn't have anyone on their team that was able to deliver the processes they need to get their work done. The other wonderful thing, so I'm going to show you some of their team derailers now, which really got me going. This is an incredibly passive-aggressive group of people. So what they were doing, everybody would come through and say, hey, boss, we're having a problem with this, and do you agree with me on this? And they would be like, yeah, that's really good, I like you. We're not doing that. Yeah, and so they would smile and nod at people, and basically they would lie to them. They would smile and nod and say, yes, I agree with you, we have a terrible problem, that's a great idea, and then they would just step away, and they would not do anything about that feedback. And so they lost a lot of trust. They lost a lot of trust in the organization, and that was causing them some serious problems. You can also see here, for example, we saw earlier that innovation was a big thing that this team is interested in doing. They were obscure and difficult to understand, highly imaginative. A lot of them, they had all these wonderful big ideas, but the problem was that business was struggling to make progress in the short term, right? So this is the way I described it to him. I said, look, and this is the real actual slide I shared with them. I said, look, at your best, your people see you as flexible, collaborative, and interested in their ideas. And this is why you think you don't have a problem with employee engagement round here. But the other problem is that you struggle to make real commitments to get things done. You can make it feel very obscure and difficult to understand. You act in a cooperative and friendly way, but avoid following through because you're not really brought in. You don't really believe in what people are asking you to do. So you avoid executing effectively, communicating effectively, and giving effective guidance. The chief executive at this point said, you've completely changed my view of this kind of work. Because, and Bruce will share some of the way that we help them also have experiences in the workplace. So we actually had them for a whole day, and we demonstrated these things. Bruce got them to do tasks and activities that caused them to see these things in practice in the way that they were operating. And so it wasn't just that we had powerful data, we were also helping them see these things in practice in the room. So the things that we wanted them to take away were pretty simple, really. It's like you as a team, as a senior leadership team, most directly influence the engagement of your people at work. Your personalities influence the way that you behave, and so that therefore translates straight through into the engagement of people. So the way that the report that we have, the Engaging Leader report, makes a connection between these things. Who you are, so the values in your personality, how people see you behave through your reputation, and then from the survey responses that we gather, how you directly impact your team, right? And it bottles that up into one nice, neat report. So each of these leaders this was the team workshop we did with them that I'm showing you here, but they each also got their own individual report and had some powerful conversations with Bruce, who's coaching them through understanding that they have an individual responsibility to help their people, be more engaged at work. But they also have a collective responsibility to work together as a senior leadership team to make real changes in their overall business. So I encourage you to check this out. I'm now going to hand over to Bruce to talk a little bit about the work that he's been doing with them, coaching them, because this isn't just about data, it's about helping these managers and leaders really change too.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you, Lewis. Maybe you just want to chill out there for a bit?
That'd be very nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's
It's when you're up here you realise what an attractive audience there is, and amongst that attractiveness is a pool of talent. So it's been a wonderful experience working with Sarota, Mercer, Lewis. We had a lot of fun there, didn't we?
We did. We had a lot of fun, yes. And yeah.
I mean, I'm standing here because, sure, I can lead, but I'm also a pretty good follower. So I might share the space with you.
Oh, thanks very much.
Okay, so we had a presentation aligned 20 minutes each. We've adjusted it slightly in the break. There's going to be a little bit of duplication that you've perhaps heard some information. So we're going to improvise as we go along. And at the same time, we'd like our audience to be part of that space and engage you the best that we can. Is everybody okay with that? Can we have a nice big yes after 3? 1, 2, 3, yes! See, yeses are beautiful. No's don't take you anywhere, but yeses do something quite special. Our first slide here, one key to successful leader engagement is personal change. If a leader is not engaged into their personal change, how are they going to impact their followers? Yeah? That was a wise person who created that. Leadership, we've covered that already, but the leadership, your ability to be able to connect, communicate, become curious, get to know the people within your team. And the project that we both worked with, that was an incredible journey. I mean, I particularly feel passionate about leadership because I've been fortunate to be able to work with some truly inspiring leaders. And I've also had the opportunity to work with some destructive, alienating leaders. And I thank them both. Listen with the willingness to change. I put this in there because I'd like us to go on a little bit of a journey, a challenge. Listen with the willingness to change. We've heard Kunkorn Deparangsi talk about that this morning. Listening. How often do we hear are engaged in a conversation, but we're just waiting, we're just listening until we've heard the words that have finished, and then we're ready to say our thing. So listening with the willingness to change, there's an opportunity in a few minutes, you can test that out, really engaging in the listening ability. I put this here, I'm not going to read through it, it's just that one of the clients in this project that we were working with, in the feedback session, it was quite powerful. Because this particular person, let's call him Johnny, he was quite resistant. He said, well, why should I change? Why should I change? I'm achieving. I'm getting the results. So I thought, well, what cost is the results? And so we had this powerful conversation in the feedback session. And we shifted from the way you're thinking to the way you believe, to the way you believe to what your expectations are. Expectations to attitude, attitude to behavior, behavior to communication, communication to connecting. How am I connecting with my team? Am I embracing them? Am I really understanding the talent that is within the team? Or am I just talking a beautiful story? Remember, we work with organizations as well, have beautiful values and mission statements and vision statements. And if the leaders are just saying the words, then there's not a lot of essence to the behavior. Any thoughts on that, Lewis?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I think what you're helping us understand here, Bruce, is that, while we saw the data earlier, setting a burning platform for, look, here is a problem you didn't realize you had. A lot of people then have a difficult time saying, well, how do I make these changes in my life? Okay, if I believe you that this is having a significant impact in our ability to engage people at work, how do I personally invest myself in real meaningful change? Actually, it's a lot of the work that Bruce was doing with these leaders individually, and then, we're still working with them as a team, was about helping them think differently about their behavior. Like I said, a lot of these folks, they didn't blame themselves. They thought their next level down was the problem. And, so part of shifting their mindset is to help them take more accountability and responsibility for how they influence others. And I think, this journey that you're taking them on, I also think it's important to understand that you can't just go from A to E. You need to go through the various steps and stages when you're working with the leader for this change process. So what Bruce and I brought together was, I was bringing data and science and tools and things, and Bruce was bringing experiences, helping people walk through the journey and being able to have the right conversations to understand and process what they needed to do to change.
Yeah, perfect. It's been having that space in the feedback sessions to be able to say, where are you at today? And where do you want to go? It's a little bit like the leadership legacy. How do you want to be known by your team? And what will that take? Where's the gap? Where's the gap? And how can we help you really connect the dots along the way? This same person, Johnny again, I won't read through, but it was a really wonderful testimonial from that person who came in with resistance, who basically wasn't really interested in looking at themselves until we pushed the right buttons, until we looked at purpose, until we looked at the meaning. What is the meaning of leadership for you? Outward and inward change, I wanted to throw that in there because a lot of the time in organizations, we want to change something. We want to change this. We want to look at the strategies and the processes. This is all good stuff. But do you think sometimes we forget about the people? What about the inward change, about leaders, how they're feeling, how they're connecting, how they're communicating? We've all experienced it. We've heard it before. In this particular project, I had one client who was quite proud of the ability to manipulate a situation to be able to get an outcome that he was really excited about. Missed a few things along the way. Consequence of action, consequence of behavior. We noticed that in the workshop it was surfacing because we created experiential activities that they could see for themselves behavior that was harmful to themselves, to the team, and to the organization. And they stood back at one point there, wasn't it, on the first experiential activity, Lewis?
Yeah. And the experiences, so, as I said, we had them for a day. And while we did a lot of data work and, as a, sort of enlightenment from a data perspective, when we actually got them to behave with each other, I don't know if you're going to talk about the helium stick. We got them to do an activity.
It'd be great if we could do it.
Yeah, we know, yeah. We got them to do an activity where they had to work together as a team to perform a task. And it was just chaos. And part of the problem is that they hadn't really identified what roles they were each supposed to play. And in seeing that in practice, just in an abstract task, really caused them to say, hey, as a group, we're not functioning effectively. And each of these things were small steps, taking them in the right direction to realize that they were actually the root of their own problem when it came to engaging people. Yeah.
As you can see, we have a PowerPoint. This is a guideline for us to follow because there's certain rules, and that's okay. There's certain rules. You follow a PowerPoint, but at the same time, we're improvising to be able to engage the audience as best as we can. Are you being engaged? Are you feeling engaged? Yes, it's a beautiful word, isn't it? Okay. Easy to define and easy to measure. Robert Hogan, what does he say? He says, yes, totally, it's easy to define, easy to measure. Do you trust your boss? Do you feel respected? Do you feel as excited when you started working in the organization as you are today? What's missing? Are you feeling restricted? Do you have to gauge the day to have interaction with your leader, your boss, because you're not sure how moody that person can be? Lots of things there. 2 questions. This is the opportunity for you. 2 questions. Lewis, you did give a little bit of a tip before on that one, so it should be able to hear. What are employees looking for? Think out the box. Be creative around this. And I want you to have conversations together only for 90 seconds with the person next to you or somewhere else. And what drives employees out? What drives them out the door? Yeah? 2 questions. We're going to do that for 1 minute. And let's just see what's there. Is that all right?
Yeah, listen,
Yeah.
whatever you like to do, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine us 2 turning up to an executive team? Can you see the difference? They didn't know what hit them.
Okay, so 2 minutes. I don't know if the music's going to come on, but it's all right if it doesn't. We can sing at the same time. But 2 minutes, have that powerful conversation together. Let's see from this pool of talent in the room today, what have you got there? Okay, 1 minute.
You actually have to talk to each other.
Oh, yes. I forgot to say that. Oh. Where's it gone? Oh, shit. Okay. Okay, another 30 seconds, and then we're going to come around with the microphone. We've got it. I've got another one. Is that one okay? Okay, time is up. It was under pressure. We're under pressure. Okay, give you another 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Okay, we've only got 5 or 10 minutes left for the whole presentation, so we're going to hear from a few people. Great. Would you like to share?
Sorry, I'm Yen from VP Bank Vietnam.
Wonderful.
And I work as talent development manager for the bank. And my bank is a local commerce bank with more than 24,000 people right now. but we reached after IPO we reached a higher, a very big growth, and now we are with with the chairman and the BOD now think about how to retain, to develop, to identify our talent. And relating to your question, maybe I have not yet discussion, but I have another questions to we will
You're
discuss
improvising.
each other.
You don't want to answer our questions.
I'm
Let me have my own question.
Yes, yes. Because it's quite news for me because before when we talk about engagement, we talk more about EES survey. I mean employee engagement survey. We do every 2 years. I don't know how do you do here, but. When talk about engagement, we talk more about action, what we do, how the environment, and more about the fact, the employee, how the employee see the environment, and after that we have the action to retain, to train the environment, working environment. It means that the fact. But here, when you talk about engagement here, it's quite new for me. In fact, maybe I come from maybe low-level HR industry, for example. But here, as I understand, is we talk about engagement from internal approach. It means we leverage engagement from inside, from when we use the test, the assessment to measure engagement. And is that so? Maybe after that the result of assessment, maybe we have also action plan, but we focus on person to retain, to keep, to implement engagement program, for example.
What I love about this is that you really didn't answer the questions, but you have an important question for yourself, which is that this is causing you to think differently about the engagement as a topic.
But come back to my place, I think that it's quite different, and how to put in Vietnam, for example, in my bank, that suck new image, new things like that, and maybe you as expert may help the bank to put in, because I think the bank, even they are quite developed in Vietnam, but they still stick to traditional way to.
Well, I tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
I tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
So first of all, he and I are here all day, so we can talk to you. But very earlier on, and we're out of time, so I don't, and I'm sure you all look hungry, so I don't want to delay this any further.
We've got 5. Yeah.
So here's my thing. So earlier on, I said there are 3 things that are important for engagement, 3 ways that you can foster an engagement with people. The first is to enable people to have the right kind of experiences with leadership. Engagement is a response to good leadership. And you heard this morning several people talk about what good leadership looks like, and what we demonstrated here in this particular process was that what these managers and leaders thought was good leadership turned out to be a problem. Yes. They didn't realize that the engagement issue wasn't so much that they weren't being nice, because they thought of engagement as in being nice. If I'm nice to you, you'll be engaged. The problem is that people didn't feel these leaders were invested in helping them get their work done. So they had enablement challenges. They were frustrated that the leadership didn't seem interested in actually helping them get their work done. So they were frustrated and disengaged as a result. And the reason is because these leaders didn't have someone with the personality that would play the delivery and execution role. So that's one, leadership. Second, work environment. Your EES measures the environment. That's important. Learning opportunities, relationships with colleagues. Do I feel that my job is rich, fulfilling, compelling, rewarding for me? Do I have the right compensation package? Whatever, right? That's important too. But together those things are about 70% of engagement. And then last is the individual. me as an individual and who I am and my personality and what I want from work and fit and these other topics that we've talked about. And those three things together, leadership, work environment, individual employee, are the three things that we should all be talking about when it comes to engagement. In this case, we found leadership was the challenge.
Yep.
Three things that drive
Yes.
engagement.
Well, right now, we basically talk about EES, and that's only 1/3. And sometimes maybe we address some topics around leadership, but we don't do it in a way, frankly, that's very good. And when I turn up and talk to leaders about the influence they have on engagement, usually it's just like, yeah, that's just some survey results. It's someone else's opinion. You know, I'm in charge, right? My opinion matters more. And that's, you know, a lot of what we talk about here is the difference between how leaders think of themselves and really how they impact others. You know, that's what reputation is. Look, we're out of time.
Yep, they just gave the
gave
5
us the
minutes.
big
I've got a 1 minute just to finish up there,
Okay, go
Lewis.
on then,
You're
one
okay
more,
with
and
that?
then-
Keep the conversations alive because we haven't heard your word now when we have the break. Keep it alive around the engagement. What do employees need? I wanted to show you the last slide. We're not racing through, but essentially that's the roadmap. Oh, you saw the one with around the neck. Okay, that was a bit extreme. But there's the report. The feedback session is critical. That's when we get into the heart of the leader. That's when we push the buttons and challenge the assumptions. The individual development plan is created from that feedback session. The coaching sessions are aligned completely throughout. So the coaching sessions, what behavior am I going to change as a leader today in order to serve myself better and the team and the organization? Specific behaviors. The team workshop was the fun, interactive, but it was powerful. That was experiential activities with facts, data, research combined. They could see for themselves behaviors surfacing that weren't supporting their needs. The follow-up session, critical again then. Quick one on there, Lewis, the follow-up.
Yeah, so we're in the process of planning it. So actually what we're going to do now is do the next level down. So those 25 directors, they're going to go through this similar experience. So, you know, what we want to do is transform the way the leadership in this organization behaves so that they can drive better engagement.
Yep. Leadership, behavior, creating the culture, sustaining it within the company, creating that tribal network within the group. Have some fun today. Keep the interaction going. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Bruce, Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you.